So good
Okay.
morning, good night, depending on where you are. And welcome to another video of the Shield During a Couch. Today, we have another of the My Essential albums, and we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Radiohead's OK Computer, which turned 25 today, May 21st. And I'm not alone. I have John from JC Rock and Metal Reviews join me. I've done some videos on his channel, and I totally recommend his channel, especially if you want to know a lot about like classic rock, 70s rock. This man is an encyclopedia of knowledge on that section. So, John, thank you for accepting my invite to talk about Radiohead's OK
Yeah,
Computer.
yeah,
Cool.
yes.
So yeah, thank you for doing this. So yeah, we're gonna what we're gonna do is like obviously we're gonna talk about the album, what we thought, how it holds up 25 years later, and I also have 10 facts that maybe some people do not know about OK Computer. So since today John is my guest, I'm gonna let John start talking about OK Computer.
Okay, fine. Well, I'm going to talk about my relationship with Radiohead because I guess it does go back to their first album, which is Pablo Honey.
Yeah.
So, I'm like a little older. I'm 50 years old. So when Pablo Honey came out, I was in college and I was in a grunge band, and we did cover songs of Radiohead's Creep. And then we did some like Rage Against the Machine, some Stone Temple Pilots, Smashing Pumpkins, and all the whatever was happening in the grunge scene back then. So Pablo Honey was like a really big album for me. I really loved that. After that, I kind of like didn't really follow him too much. After that came the Bends. That was a good album. I think like today, actually, that's probably like one of my favorites. Then I remember when this one came out, and it was like hailed by the critics as like one of like the best albums to ever come. Like supposedly like this is one of the albums that had like the most like critical acceptance like since like the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper. So I mean, like everybody loved this. It was supposed to be like a groundbreaking album. Now I think it's good. In my opinion, it's not. I wouldn't put this at number one for Radiohead albums. I might, the ones the Radiohead albums that I like Pablo Honey, I like the Bends, and I like In Rainbows, and then the rest of them, I can kind of like take them or leave them. So I am not a big major Radiohead fan as far as their entire discography. I am a fan of their early stuff, but I do enjoy this album. I listened to it again, and I think it does have some strong points, some weak points, and we can talk about them as we
Yeah.
go along.
Yeah. No.
But
Yeah.
I definitely think it's I think it's a good album. So I'll let you
Yeah.
continue. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with this album, when it came out, I must say at first that I wasn't a huge fan when it came out at first because I thought
Yeah.
at that moment, when it came out in 1997, I was really into like the harder stuff, like like the
Yeah.
new metal and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's an album that I think I started to love more later in life. And like you, I think the first two albums were more alternative rock. So in OK Computer, they started to change. So I have here 10 facts that people may not know about the album. So the album was recorded in a 10th century stone manor in England. So they recorded like in a really old house. The song Lucky, which is one of the last songs on the album, was recorded in 5 hours, and they did it for a war child charity. And it was when they did that song, they liked that they didn't overthink it, and they did that approach on the album. And at that point, Tom York, the lead singer, wanted to write a more positive album because they were very bleak and kind of depressive. But reading that about him, that he wanted to write a more positive album, and listening to OK Computer, I was listening to it yesterday and today. I don't see it being a positive album. I think it's a bleak album. And the band,
Yeah.
yeah, they started to perform songs of the album while they were touring with Alanis Morissette. So they did like Paranoid Android, 10-minute version of it on a tour, which I thought it was interesting that they had a 10-minute version of that song. But yeah, there's 5 facts. I'll on the next, I'll give the other 5 facts later. But yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah. So what are your favorite
so
tracks
cool.
from the album, John?
Okay, so for me, I think the album has like a really strong start and a really like strong finish, and then in the middle there were a couple songs which I think I wouldn't call them filler, but I would just say call them like weaker songs. So I have here, let me just I look at my notes. So the first 5 songs, awesome. Airbag, really love that one. You know, they right out the gate, they're introducing like this new sound. They start to like mixing different instruments, they experiment. One thing I like about Radiohead is the drum beats in this like newer style, where it kind of seems like the drums are doing their own thing, and then the other instruments are kind of doing their own thing. The song Airbag, it does have like elements of grunge music if you like listen closely. So there is like a little bit of their older style in there. And I say grunge, I know they're a British band, they're not from Seattle, but that first album, Parlophone, was very like grunge-like. I think that's what I liked about it. But I'm going back to this album. So then Paranoid Android, another awesome song. It has the acoustic guitars, it has those like falsetto vocals, and just that really great drum beat. After that, Subterranean Homesick Alien, which is pretty cool. It's like a play of an old Bob Dylan song. I think it's called Subterranean Homesick Blues. And another really good one. It has that like space rock, those futuristic sounds. That's a really good one. The next one, exit movie for film, very laid back, really atmospheric type of song. This one I think might have been used for a movie. I don't know if that's part of it.
Yeah, that's one of the facts. It was used
I mean,
for Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I knew that was the reason for it. But this is pretty cool. It's more very laid back. The next one, Let Down. I think that one it's good. It's okay. Not as strong as like the first 4. But then Karma Police. This is the one song that I knew the best because I remember, back in 1997, I was, working a sales job, and I drove around a lot. And where I lived in New York, they had this like alternative rock radio station, and that was like always on that station. So I really know that song very well, Karma Police. Now after that, I think the album does take a little bit of a dip. It has that like short track. It's called Fit. I can't see what I wrote here. Fit or something with that like Stephen Hawking.
Oh yeah, Filter Happier. It has Filter
Fitter?
Happier. Yeah, yeah. After Karma Police, they had that, and Filter Happier.
I think that one.
Yeah, that's not like a song.
So there's that one, and then it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I mean, it could be a filler track if you would want to consider that, but maybe some fans like it. After that, another song pretty good, Electioneering. I kind of like that one. I like the lyrical context, talking about voting. And they do some different stuff in here, like they incorporate some like blues rock and into their like electronic and like almost like technical type of beat. So I like that one. Then there's Climbing Up the Walls. That one it's good. It's like space rock, a little noisy. And after that, they're really good again. So I know there are different versions of the song, but I have like 3 more songs written. No Surprises, Lucky, and The Tourist. Those are all awesome songs. Like, I really love those songs, especially No Surprises. I really love that one. It's just like this creepy lullaby song. Lucky, really great, slow, mellow, and The Tourist, it just kind of ends out the album. kind of has like a little, brings in a little bit of that grunge sound, almost like Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought. So that's really a good closure. So definitely, I think the album has a really great front half and a great bottom half, and in the middle, it's good, not awesome, but that's just kind of like what I think about this album. So
Yeah,
I
The Tourist for me has more of like a Pink Floyd vibe.
oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, if you will. And the song that you after Karma Police, they have the seventh song, Filter Happier. It's not much of a song. It's more like a dividing the first half with the second half. It's not really a concept album, but OK Computer, when Tom York wrote that album, it's the beginning of the internet. And the album really explores how the computers and technology basically isolate us. So Tom York, the theme in this album is so ahead of its time, because it was 1997 and he was already talking about how technology is isolating us. And nowadays, like you can tell, there's a lot of people that get depressed that they're only online. So it's really impressive to me. This is an amazing. To me, this is a fantastic album. It's not an album. It's not an easy listening. This is not an album that you can listen once and get it right away. It's an album that you need to like sit down, especially if you listen it with headphones. The nuances that it has. For example, I think Airbag, which is the song that starts the album, is the song that sounds more like Radiohead The Bands. It's a good transition.
That's what I think,
it's a good transition because they didn't want to start weird right away. It's a good transition from the bands to what the new album is. But then when they do Paranoid Android is a great song because it has great guitars, but there's part of the songs, if you listen to it, you hear the computer like saying some words. And something that's very present in this album is like the computer character is like present all over. Sometimes in the song you can hear like some noises, especially obviously Filter Happier is just like a computer naming some lines that I think at the beginning I'm like, it's weird, but I think it really goes well into Electioneering, which is there's more guitar.
Actually, where does that on your vinyl? Where does Filter Happy appear? Is it like the first song?
Vinyl, the first half. Yeah, the first half of the album ends on Karma Police, and the second album, the second part starts with Filter Happier. So you put it and you hear the computer talking. And I remember putting this.
I guess that kind of works if you're listening on vinyl, because if you put on side 2 and it starts with a Filter Happier, it's almost like it's starting the second side and it's kind of like building up. So I can see how that would work, as opposed to listening to it like on CD or streaming where you're listening like all the way through. But I can see like it's different with vinyl, because when you flip it over, it's kind of like you're almost like starting over again, and then you start with that song. And I think that's probably would work better as like a nice introduction. So
I remember putting that song and my wife being like, "What the hell is that?" I'm like, "Oh, that's part of the album." And obviously the story of the album was very progressive at the time. It's not really per se like a concept album, but this is an album where Radiohead started their experimentation. Then after this, they went with Kid A. That at the time I hated Kid A because it went like further down the rabbit hole, and it was just too weird for me. But I think this is the perfect balance of guitars with what they do now, and also they brought a lot of like delayed pedals. After this album came out, a lot of bands are like, "Oh, now I need to do a delayed pedal," and actually, Tom York was inspired listening to Miles Davis' Bitches Brew doing this album. And very interesting fact is that most of this album was recorded live. So it's interesting because it's live, but then they have those like weird electronic sounds. So the album, they struggle naming the album. So the album title OK Computer came from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They struggle with what to name it, but I think it's it's a very catchy album title, and
Yeah.
this is also the first album that was self-produced by the band. So they really wanted to experiment on it. And when they finished the album and they wanted to promote it, they thought that this was going to flop, that no one was going to get it, because it was such a drastic change from, the bands and Pablo Honey, especially Pablo Honey. Pablo Honey was very, like you said, had more like alternative grunge sound to it.
Because I thought Pablo Honey was, because they really got big with the song Creep, and
Yeah.
that song Creep is pretty much like a Nirvana song. It's basically like the simple 4-chord progression. The first verse is in the clean, and then they play the second verse like the chorus with the distortion. So it's basically like a Nirvana song.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was their intention, but I think that's why that song got like really big. And I think the band like hates that song. I think they don't even like play it live anymore.
Yeah, I think they don't love it.
The rest of no. But the rest of the album, Pablo Honey, it's more. It was like very like alternative rock or grungy, like that type of music. Maybe more like Pearl Jam or those types of bands. And then when they released the Bends, I think they started to incorporate a little of that experimentation that we see on this album, OK Computer. So, and then I'm like you with with Kid A, I kind of like abandoned the band at that point. Yeah. And I didn't get into them again until In Rainbows, which is actually I also saw them live, which is pretty cool.
I've never seen them live, and it's a band that I want to see live. So
yeah, you should. They have a nice they have like big screens and yeah,
and something, it was a good show. Something that's very interesting about the band, Tom York has a very unique voice. When you listen to it, it's him, because it's kind of melancholic, it's kind of whiny, and it has that it has a lot of emotion to it. And obviously Karma Police was a hit single, and it's really catchy, and the lyrics are very cryptic. He's saying like, Karma Police, arrest this man. He has a Hitler haircut that's making me feel ill. And you're like, I wonder what that. It's a great lyric, but I'm like, what the hell is it about? The interpretation can be weird about this song. And I remember the music when this was on MTV Play music videos. I remember the music video was just him like on a car that's driving, like following someone. I don't know if you remember that music video. And like at the end, like the car.
No, I haven't seen it in a long time, man.
Yeah, like the car catches fire, and Tom York's like just like singing the Karma Police. But I also, No Surprises is like a lullaby, like you said. And I like that, the subtlety of the music, because it's a song that's very subtle, but it works. Lucky is impressive that they did that in 5 hours. So it's a song that they didn't overthink. I like Let Down. I think Let Down's a great song as well. To me, the album is an album that you have to be in the mood to listen to it, and it's a grower. I think it sounds better on vinyl. It sounds great because you hear all the nuances of the sounds that they use, and it's impressive that they self-produced this album, and also the theme of like alienation through technology in 1997. So it's an album that's very ahead of its time. I can see why it's applauded as much. I love it, but I also love the bands. I think the bands and this album are my favorite album. That's the only ones I have from them on vinyl. But yes, it's an album that I think stands the test of time, and that's why I have it in one of my essential albums. And I think the themes that they have on this album in 1997 are very relatable today. So they stand the test of time, because sometimes there's albums that you listen to them and after years, maybe they don't resonate as well, but not the case with OK Computer. So to today 25 years old, and we're geeking here about it. So we want to know, first of all, anyone that's gotten this far in the video, thank you for watching. Give us a like. Don't forget to subscribe. And on the comment, let us know, what did you think about OK Computer? What were your favorite track of the album? Is it your favorite Radiohead album, or do you think it's overrated? You know, I really love the discussions about the album, and I'm going to do more collaborations with John. I do some collaborations on his channel as well, JC Rock and Metal Reviews. I'm gonna leave the link in the description of his channel for people. Check out his channel, you know, great content. And I hope that John does more collaborations also on my channel in the future, so we can,
oh yeah, of course,
we can talk about different types of albums, and you know, all that good stuff. So Radiohead, OK Computer, awesome album. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. And especially if you want to listen to an album that this is an album that I think anyone who's stoned will love it. Because it's like a trippy album.
Yeah.
And
it's a good headphone album too.
It's a good helpful album because with the headphones you get to listen to the nuances. Like sometimes, even I've heard this album a lot of times, but sometimes you listen to it and you're like, oh, there's something that I missed, because like there's so many stuff that they did. And this is the album that made Radiohead. They went from a band that, I think what they did at that time is, you know, they were lumped with the Nirvanas, the Pearl Jams, and I think they did this because they wanted to stand out, and that they did, because to this day people talk about this album. And they went, now Radiohead, you speak of them and you talk about experimentation, like prog rock, you name it. So that's why
I also think I've heard like a lot of younger people being into Radiohead, you know, people who are like in their like 20s, who were born, you know, after the year 2000 or something. I've heard people say they really like Radiohead. They like the later albums. So I think that's kind of impressive as well. You know, you don't really see that as much.
Yeah, it's something that they do very well. So yeah, I hope to see them live one day. So John, again, thank you for guesting here on my channel, and hopefully we'll do more collaborations in the future. So everyone, until next time, this is Hector, the Shield on the Couch, and we'll see you right here on the couch for next time. Thank you and good night.